How does a really baffling mystery, one that stumped investigators for, more than a decade, suddenly just break wide open? That's really the core question we're diving into today as we unpack one of those chilling and, frankly, long-running cold cases in recent U.S. history. The Gilgo Beach murders.
Right. Or the Long Island serial killer, L.I.S.K, some people call it.
Exactly. Or even the Craigslist Ripper case. So our mission here is to sort of peel back the layers of this really complex, often chilling story. We'll look at the timeline, the victims, the pretty surprising breakthrough, and the evidence that finally led to a major arrest. We want to help you get a handle on the key facts and the real turning points.
Yeah, and this whole disturbing story really starts, or at least comes to light, back in December 2010. The police, they weren't even looking for these victims initially. They were actually searching for a missing escort, Shanann Gilbert, and that's when they stumbled onto something just horrifying.
Not just one person.
No, not one. They found 4 bodies, all wrapped in burlap sacks, just left along Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach. They became known as the Gilgo 4.
It's just awful. And tragically, that initial discovery, as horrifying as it was really just the start, wasn't it?
Yeah.
How did things escalate from there?
It really was just the tip of the iceberg. In the months that followed, they found the remains of 10 more victims in that same general area, so the number just kept climbing.
And more, wow.
Yeah. And figuring out who the victims were, the victimology, that presented a real challenge because, many were young women working as escorts, like Shanann Gilbert. But then they also found a toddler, Tatiana Dykes, who they called Baby Doe for a while, and even an unidentified Asian male. So that diversity really complicated things, made it harder to pin down a clear pattern right away, made the case tougher.
So with such a varied group of victims, could investigators find any kind of consistent method? A signature, maybe?
Right.
Something pointing to one person?
Well, yes. Despite the victim differences, some groom patterns did emerge. Many victims were dismembered or found partially buried, and several had been strangled and then wrapped, usually in burlap, sometimes plastic. So that suggested a similar approach across multiple cases.
Okay.
And the fact that remains were found in both Suffolk and Nassau counties, that also made them think, maybe one killer, maybe more than one operating in the area.
Right.
And like you mentioned earlier, the whole Shanann Gilbert situation is still debated. Was her death an accident? Or was she also a victim of L.I.S.K? That adds another layer of complexity.
And for more than 10 years, the case just sat there, cold, an unsolved mystery hanging over Long Island.
What was it about this case that just, captivated everyone for so long?
I think it hit on a few really unsettling levels. First, the idea that the killer used Craigslist. That tapped into fears about digital anonymity, which was still kind of a newer thing crime-wise back then.
Right, the dark side of the internet. Exactly. And second, just the sheer number of victims, that plus the fact that it went unsolved for so long, it just fueled public fear, media frenzy. People were terrified.
Understandably. The idea of a serial killer just operating freely.
For years, potentially right under everyone's noses.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just fear either. The community's trust, especially in the police, took a hit, didn't it? There were whispers.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. Issues within the department.
Absolutely. There were allegations, persistent ones, of police corruption, mishandling the case, particularly within the Suffolk County PD. That just shattered the whole investigation. It added this extra layer of frustration, suspicion. People just desperately wanted answers and felt like they weren't getting them, maybe for troubling reasons.
So after all that time, a decade of silence, frustration, fear, 2023 happens. The case suddenly breaks wide open with the arrest of Rex Heuermann. Tell us about him.
Heuermann himself is, a disturbing figure to emerge. He's an architect, late 50s, early 60s when arrested, lived in Massapequa Park, which is notably close to Gilgo Beach.
Right nearby.
Yeah. Married, 2 kids. Some described him as a mama's boy. Outwardly, just a quiet family man, seemed very normal. But police alleged he was leading this chilling double life.
A dual life. And the initial charges, they were just the start, right? How did things unfold from there? More charges came later.
That's right. Initially, he was charged with the murders of 3 of the Gilgo 4, Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amberlyn Costello. But the investigation just kept rolling. January 2024, They added charges for Maureen Brainerd Barnes, the last of the Gilgo Four.
Okay.
Then in June 2024, charges for Jessica Taylor and Sandra Castilla. And most recently, Valerie Mack in December 2024. So it's now up to 7 murder charges in total.
7. And how far back do these alleged murders actually go? Does his arrest potentially solve even older cases?
That's one of the most stunning parts. The timeline could stretch way back, possibly into the early 1990s. Sandra Castillo, for instance, her death was in 1993.
1993.
Wow. Yeah. So if he's responsible, this alleged pattern of violence could span almost 2 decades before the Gilgo Beach discoveries even happen. It makes this breakthrough potentially massive for solving older mysteries, too.
So after all those years, what finally broke the case? I heard something about a pizza crust playing a role. Seems so random.
It sounds random, but yeah, the pizza crust was apparently huge. Though an earlier key piece was a witness seeing a specific truck, a Chevrolet Avalanche, near where Amberlynn Costello vanished.
Okay.
That truck was eventually traced to Heuermann, and that really gave the investigation, as they say, legs. But the DNA evidence, that's what seems to have really cemented things. They got male DNA from a pizza box he discarded in 2023. And incredibly, that DNA was a match to male hair found on the burlap used to wrap Megan Waterman.
Wow. That's specific.
Very specific, and maybe even more damning, they found hairs from his wife, Asa Ellerup, on several victims. They used mitochondrial DNA analysis.
Which passed down maternally, right?
Yeah, exactly, passed down from the mother. That DNA traced back to his family line, linking them to several victims and, crucially, excluding like 99% of the population.
So that DNA evidence sounds pretty powerful.
Yeah.
But the defense must be challenging it. How are they approaching that?
Oh, absolutely. This brings up big questions about forensic tech in court. The defense is heavily contesting the reliability of the specific DNA software used, something called IDBGEM.
IDBGEM.
Okay. Yeah, and also the advanced genetic sequencing methods. So there have been major pre-trial hearings just focused on trying to get that DNA evidence thrown out, or at least questioned. It's a huge battleground.
Makes sense. Beyond the DNA, though, were there other chilling finds? You hear reports about a blueprint document. What was that?
Yeah, that's incredibly disturbing. Investigators found a Word document, apparently from around the year 2000, in his basement. And it wasn't just notes. It was described as a detailed kill plan, like instructions.
Instructions. For what?
Things like how to prepare a body, how to avoid leaving DNA, cleaning up a site, even checking for surveillance cameras beforehand. It suggests this really cold, calculated level of planning, almost like a manual.
That's deeply unsettling. And his online activity, that painted a dark picture too, didn't it?
It really did. Showed a profound, dark obsession. Reports say Heuermann conducted over 200 online searches directly related to the victims, their families, even the task force investigating him.
He was searching for the task force.
Yeah, and searching for general topics too, things like rape, torture, child sexual abuse. It creates this digital trail pointing right at his alleged fixations.
And aside from the digital stuff, what about physical discoveries? Anything else found, say, at his home?
Definitely. After the arrest, police searched his house and found the secret room in the basement, a gun room.
A secret room.
Yeah, and inside a massive weapons cache. 279 firearms, long guns, handguns, some apparently held illegally, even though he had permits for like 92 guns already.
279.
And his family reportedly had no idea about this room, no access. Just adds another layer to that whole alleged dual life narrative.
So when you put it all together, the victims, the methods, this apparent planning, what kind of profile starts to emerge?
Well, the modus operandi seems pretty consistent for many victims. Primarily female sex workers, often found via Craigslist, all strangled, bound, frequently dismembered, wrapped in burlap or plastic. And that blueprint document discovery, it really aligns him with what profilers call power control serial killers.
Like BTK, maybe?
Exactly like that type. Someone meticulous, organized, focused on dominance and controlling the scene, disposing of evidence carefully.
And there's been speculation, too, about maybe deeper psychological motives, something about his personal life.
There has been. Some friends, observers, they've speculated that he might have targeted petite women who resembled his mother physically, which, points towards potential deep-seated psychological drivers, which is something criminal psychologists often explore in cases like this.
So, bringing us up to date, legally speaking, where does the case stand now in 2025? What's next?
Okay, so Rex Heuermann has pleaded not guilty to all 7 murder charges. He remains in custody. The defense strategy seems pretty clear. They're trying to get the charges separated, dealt with victim by victim rather than all at once, and they're continuing that aggressive challenge against the DNA evidence. That's key.
Right, the DNA fight. And what are the next big milestones we should look out for in court?
Well, those crucial pretrial hearings about the DNA evidence were scheduled for March 28th, 2025. The outcome of those will be significant. The full trial itself, that's probably not expected until late 2025, maybe even early 2026. It's going to be a long process.
And are investigators still looking into potential links to other victims found in that area? Like the toddler, Baby Doe?
They are. Investigators have said they're still reviewing connections to other victims found near Gilgo, like Tatiana Dykes, the toddler, and her mother, Tanya Jackson. But so far, there's been no public announcement linking Heuermann to those specific cases yet. Still ongoing.
Okay, so just kind of wrap up the main points. The prosecution's case really seems to hinge on this convergence of evidence, right? You've got the DNA pizza crusts, hair, you've got the digital footprint, the searches, that chilling planning document, then the witness ID of the truck, and there's a huge cache of weapons. But the defense is zeroing in on the reliability of that DNA tech, making it a really complex fight.
Absolutely. It's a case that's very much still unfolding in court. Those evidentiary battles are going to be critical. And the sheer timeline is staggering now. Alleged victims stretching from 1993 all the way to 2010, at least 7 murders tied to him now, possibly more. It just shows how long secrets like this can potentially stay hidden.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What does a case like this, with this strange mix of decades-old cold trail suddenly cracked open by cutting-edge science, what does it really tell us about the capacity for people to lead these hidden, dark lives, right next door, and how technology maybe is finally starting to catch up to close in on those secrets?